Meeting has been given public notice in accordance with section 19.83 and 19.84 Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all members are present except for Chairman Walter. A motion would be in order to appoint a chairman pro tem.
So moved.
Specified movements.
Oh, I keep forgetting that, don't I? David Baum.
Second.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to appoint trustee Baum as chairman pro tem. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. That brings us to item number 3, approval of the minutes for March 11th, 2024. Do we have a motion for approval?
Move approval as submitted. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve minutes. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Brings us to item 4, new business. 4A is a public hearing regarding a proposed amendment of the project plan for tax incremental district number 7 and a proposed amendment of the project plan for tax incremental district number 8, followed by consideration and possible action on a resolution approving the amendment to the project plan for TID 7 and consideration of possible action of the resolution approving an amendment to the project plan TID number 8, public hearing and action. That brings us to the purpose of the meeting is to organize a joint review board. No, that's the previous meeting. Notice is hereby given that the Plan Commission of the Village of Germantown will hold a public hearing on April 8th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. The meeting will be held in the Germantown Village Hall located at North 112 West 17001 Mequon Road. People can join on WebEx if they wish. The hearing will be held to provide a public a reasonable opportunity to comment on the proposed amendment to the TID number 7 and 8. I need to read the rest of this. Based on the planned use of the property within the boundaries at the time of creation, territory within the district was previously identified. Keep going.
Go ahead.
Right.
Sorry.
Previously identified as suitable for industrial development projects to be undertaken within the district and the cost to be incurred. Project cost will be continued to be for the purpose of promoting industrial development and will include acquisition of property, rights of way or easements, site preparation, installation, or rehabilitation of utilities and streets, professional services and, organizational costs, administrative costs, financing costs, and other costs as may be necessary to implement the district's project plan. Projects will be undertaken within the district's proposed boundary and in areas located within 1/2 mile of the boundary, as permitted under Wisconsin statute section 66.1105, parent 4, parent H1. The list of estimated project costs in the current project plan will be amended and increased by approximately $1,520,000 in TID 7. TID number 8 amendment, based on the planned use and properties within the boundaries at the time of the creation, territory within the district was previously identified as suitable for industrial development. Projects to be undertaken within the district and costs to be incurred will continue to be for the purposes of promoting industrial development and will include acquisition of property, rights of way or easements, site preparation, installation of or rehabilitation of utilities and streets, professional services and organizational costs, administrative costs, financing costs, and other costs as may be necessary to implement the district's project plan. Projects will be undertaken within the district's proposed boundary and in areas located in the village within 1/2 mile of that boundary. As permitted under Wisconsin statute section 66.1105, parent 4, parent H1, The list of estimated project costs in the project plan would be amended and increased approximately $5,375,000. All interested parties will be given reasonable opportunity to comment on the proposed amendment to the district project plan. A copy of the proposed amendment to the district plan is available for public inspection and will be provided upon request during normal business hours at the office of the village clerk at Germantown Village Hall, located at North 112 West 17001 Mequon Road. This information can also be viewed on the village's website and there's a web address, by order of the Village of Germantown, Wisconsin, published March 27th, 2024. I will open this public hearing.
David, before you do that,
Yes.
we have Phil Cosson here with Ehlers, our public finance consultant,
Okay.
to give a brief presentation on the proposed amendments to TID 7 and TID 8.
Okay.
And then after Phil's presentation, we can open up
Comments?
for comments.
Okay, Phil, would you like to give us a presentation?
All right, thank you. Good evening. Phil Costa with Ehlers. Nice to be with you. For those who had to hear this once already, I apologize. You're going to hear it again. If you were here earlier for the JRB meeting. We have in your packet the full project plan, and I'm more than happy to walk through what you would like in the project plan, but I thought would be more efficient is to kind of go through a summary, which I put together in this kind of brief PowerPoint, which lays out the amendment for both 7 and 8. And I'll walk through that and then answer any questions you have along the way. So let me start with process, and then we'll kind of jump into each of the amendments. So this is the normal TID process to either create a district or amend a district, and it's a 3-step approval process. One, we need to get approval from Plan Commission. What we're asking you tonight, if you're comfortable with the plan, is to actually accept the plan and forward it on to the village board after the public hearing. And then the village board, if you do so, would take this up next week, Monday, the 15th. The Joint Review Board, which is a representative of the school, county, technical college, and the village, and a public member, that 5-member body is met and organized before this meeting, and then have set their subsequent meeting scheduled for May 6th at, was it 5 o'clock? 5 o'clock, thank you. At 5 o'clock. So again, they will hold that meeting only if this proceeds through the first 2 steps, which is Plan Commission and Village Board. So if everything is approved, this will get submitted to the DOR September, October timeframe, and they do their technical review of each of the of both of the amendments. So we'll start with TID 7. You can see that this is the current boundaries. We're not going to amend the boundaries of 7 or 8. These are project amendments, meaning all we're doing is we're adding project costs. We're not changing the boundaries at all of the tax increment district. In the dark shaded on the southeast portion of this map was the original boundary of the tax increment district, which was created for J.W. Speaker. And then back in 2021, we amended for the area to the north and west for the Capstone Quadrangle development, which is taking place along Holy Hill Road. So this is the current boundary, again, not changing. We're not proposing any amendments to the boundaries, but rather just to the project. So that's the boundary area of the existing tax increment district. So this is a little more of a summary. I've kind of touched on a few of these already, but I'll highlight the key ones. So TID 7, and as you heard in the public hearing notice, is an industrial tax increment district, meaning that at least 50% of the area must be zoned and suitable for industrial purpose and must retain that through the life of the district. That's not going to change. This is an area that's been identified as industrial, will remain. And the maximum life of this district is 20 years. Again, the district was created back in 2017 to assist JW Speaker in their expansion. District was amended again in 21. That was the first amendment that was done in TID 7 for the Capstone Quadrangle development along Holy Hill Road. The original boundary included 160 acres, which was expanded through the amendment to 331 acres. Some of the acreage is not developable. It's a wetland and low area, but it's about 331 acres in total as it stands today. The amendment, why are we going through this process, is to really add project costs, and what we're looking to amend the projects to add $1,870,000 in new project costs. The notice stated a different amount, and the reason for that is further review by village staff. We had to kind of reallocate some of the projects between 7 and 8. The dollar amounts didn't change between the two, but we had to allocate some more of the costs from 8 to 7 because they have to be within a half-mile radius. So some of the projects that were earmarked initially for TID 7 had to be, for TID 8, sorry, got removed and added to TID 7, and some projects moved over to TID 8. So the numbers changed a little bit, which is not a problem. These are draft project plans all the way through the process. So you have the ability to make changes to the project plan through the process. So we are looking to add $1,870,000 in new project costs. And our financial analysis shows that by adding the $1.87 million in project costs, we will be looking to keep the district open for up to 2 additional years. Cash flow is pretty strong in TID 7. I'll show you that in a little bit, but this will require the district to remain open a little bit longer. These are the project costs that are being added to the project plan. They are a portion of the overall cost for these different projects, and there's a broader list of projects, some of which is going to be not paid for through TID, and some will be picked up by the village of Richfield as well in this general area. So this is the portion that is eligible to be paid for out of TID 7. Freistadt Road is all 3 of the costs are tied to Freistadt Road. High Point Pass to Interstate 41 for all 3. The first cost is road reconstruction, $930,000, sewer of $600,000, and $330,000 for water. So adding these project costs to the tax increment district enable you to pay for these out of the TID fund as opposed to levying dollars for the road reconstruction or using water or sewer revenues to pay for the water and sewer costs. They get paid out of the TID 7 fund as opposed to those other the other funds that I just mentioned. So we have some small professional service fee costs related to the amendment to the tax increment district that's been identified here as well. So those are the costs that are being added. Again, no change to the boundaries. Location of the projects for TID number 7, you can see identified here on this map. This really shows not just 7, but 8, and it kind of highlights the projects. And so these are half-mile radius projects, meaning they're outside of the current boundaries of the district, but within a half mile. And that's why again, the public hearing notice reference the half-mile radius, then the fact that these projects are within that half mile. So these are the location of the projects that have been identified in this area. Before I jump into the actual cash flow, just a quick statement. Working with staff, we really did talk about do we amend the boundaries of 7 and 8 and look at picking up any potential new development as part of the tax increment district. It was the thought of the village staff that they really didn't want to see the boundaries amended. They'd rather see development, if it occurs, in these areas to not occur within the tax increment districts, because there's enough anticipated revenue in the 2 TIDs to absorb these costs. So any new development that happens would happen outside the tax increment district, allowing for all the taxing bodies, including the village, to benefit from that right away. So they're not going to be tied up in the TID, but rather the overall benefit to all the taxing bodies. So these are the development assumptions. A lot of this has been built out already in tax increment district number 7. And you can see that current, we have current in the orange shaded column, 23 million and plus in current incremental value, new growth that has occurred in TID 7. Capstone building number 2, projected to come online at $20 million, is, I believe, nearly complete, if not complete now. And Capstone building number 3 projected to build out in 2024 at $20 million as well. Will take this overall incremental valuation number to a little over $63 million at build out. And so this will be without any further expansion at JW Speaker, which certainly has the ability to expand in the future as well. So these are the assumptions that have been tied to the cash flow that have been identified on the next slide here. And I know, I apologize, there's a lot of small numbers on here. It's hard to read. But I want you to focus on really 2 areas. The area highlighted in the tan would be a future capital borrowing for the projects that are being added to the project plan. So in talking with, again, Administrator Krecklow, we had talked about financing these projects no earlier than kind of late 24 into 25. That would be when those projects would likely be borrowed. In doing that, that would enable us one more cycle of valuation coming from the Department of Revenue. So we have a better handle on where the values are from the Capstone development and enable us the ability to match the revenues of tax increment District 7 with the expenses a little bit more clearly. Our goal, if you look at the second column on the right, the year is the last column, and then it says cumulative balance. Our goal is, that's the TID fund, is to make sure that we have a positive fund balance through the life of the district. So we're not providing any levy support or support through the water or sewer utility for the TID, but the TID is self-sufficient, paying for itself along the way. And incorporating these costs, you can see that we expect the ability to structure the debt for future issues so that we have a positive cash flow in TID number 7 through the life of the district. We project the district will close out with the current numbers that we have with Capstone's development and these new costs 4 years early than that 20-year maximum life. So even by adding these new costs and not projecting a new revenue coming from that, because we're not incorporating that into the TID, we are expecting TID 7 to close out 4 years earlier than the maximum life. Any, I don't know, Trustee Ballman, do you want me to walk through 8, or do you want to take questions, or?
Let's go ahead and start with 8. If there are questions, please interject. Go ahead and do
Okay,
8.
thank you. So TID number 8, go through the same process. TID 8 has not been amended. This was the original boundaries of tax increment district number 8 when it was created. It was really created at the time working collectively on the Briggs and Stratton building. Was the first building that was built in this area. And as anybody who drives through this area knows, that there is a significant amount of development that has occurred between Rockfield and Holy Hill Roads. So TID 8, quick summary here also, was created back on July 2nd, 2018. Total acreage, 225 acres. This too is an industrial district, meaning it can have only a 20-year life. And it has to retain the zoning for industrial through the life of the district. This amendment that we are proposing, again, is just a project amendment. We're not changing boundaries, adding a little under $5 million in project costs, which is a little bit less than the number you read in the public hearing notice. Again, we had to do the shift between 7 and 8. But again, all the costs are within a half-mile radius of the boundaries of TID number 8. This amendment, again, would keep the district open for about 2 additional years. And this district has a very strong cash flow. I'll get into that in a little more detail, but it's really in good financial position. These are the projects that are being added as a result of this amendment. They really center primarily around Rockfield Road, improvements, Goldendale to Gateway, road reconstruction, $1,380,000, sewer, $880,000, water, $540,000, Gateway crossing to I-41, sewer, $1,050,000, and then High Point Pass, Holy Hill to Railroad, construction of $1,080,000. So pretty substantial projects within the area just to the north primarily of the existing boundaries of the tax increment district. So again, $4,945,000 is what's been identified to be added as a result of this amendment. Location again highlighted here of where the majority of the costs would take place within this amendment. Development assumptions. Again, I told the JRB members that when we created TID 8 back in 21, we were anticipating about $100 million in valuation at that point at full build out. That was the full build out estimate. Right now there's 180 million plus in valuation out there. And we would have Zilber building number 6 come online this year. Dickman Golden Pet come online next year. The combination along with what's in ground right now would be a valuation of more than double of what was anticipated in TID number 8 when we created it. So about 208 million, almost fully built out at that point. I think there's one remnant parcel potentially that can be developed yet in this area. So very successful district, and the cash flow represents that as well. Again, I don't want to try to jump through all the numbers on this sheet, but rather again, in the tan are these projects that are being added to the project plan, that roughly $5 million of projects being financed over a very short period of time, you can see there. And this district, unless there are additional projects coming online or something else is done with the district, this district will close out under half of its maximum life of 20 years. It'll be like 8 to 9 years, which is, I do this a lot around the state. That's pretty unheard of to have a district close out potentially that early. So very strong cash position, easily can absorb the costs that are being identified here. I think again, we'll close out very early and all the taxing authorities will benefit from that at that time.
Okay, Director Retzloff, where do we want to go now? Open the
If there
public.
aren't any questions, open it up for public comment.
Questions from the board? We'll start there. Seeing none, we will go to open the public hearing. Do I need to read the announcement again or?
No.
Okay. Those wishing to come forward and make a comment, please do so. I am going to start with the one that I did receive through the comments, online comments section from Katie Couts. Her comment is, I would just like to ask why Germantown should pay for a project related to and within TID 7 and 8. Shouldn't the businesses within the TID have some responsibility to cover the cost? We just had a referendum to increase taxes for police and fire. How about instead of spending money within TIDs that don't benefit from the village for years, if at all, the village pays for things? Thank you. That's the only thing I have to read. Please state your name and address.
Good evening, Sarah Larson, Butternut Road in Germantown. In hearing this presentation twice now and having the benefit of hearing the previous committee meeting and some feedback with that, there really is no compelling reason for you to vote yes on this tonight. I would be skeptical and cautious as to why there is such a sense of urgency that they would be wanting you to vote on this tonight. The school board asked why or what type of construction would be planned for Rockfield Road. The response was, well, we're investigating that. We don't have a plan. That would be something very important to the school district as to what type of businesses and the traffic level that would be around that school. The second thing is, I know one of the property owners that is affected primarily by TID 7 and has no clue of the planned road there. And to me, what I'm seeing with this push for High Point Pass is more of a rec department and big pie in the sky 2050 plan thing of wanting to be able to utilize that free parcel from MMSD. And this is the excuse to get that road built. I don't think we need it. And I think those property owners have a right to know what's going on. And so to just push forward with this, I don't think it's a good idea. You don't have the railroad approval. That can take months or a year to get that. So this doesn't have to be resolved tonight. I say put on the brakes and gather a full plan of factual information before you move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to come forward?
Good evening. Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. Okay, I agree with the previous speaker and in terms of the timing and the extent of the projects right now. I think it's questionable. There's several reasons. At the Joint Review Board meeting, the administrator said that there are plans for neighborhood meetings in place, which we all know that are leftovers from the 2050 process that have yet to happen. And the areas in question that are affected by these roads are part of those neighborhood meetings, as you all know. It would mean that if you did those neighborhood meetings before you voted on this, that you would actually be listening to the residents, which that was skipped over previously. And those residents were there before any future development occurs. Also, those residents are part of the taxpayer base. So I really think that, okay, if you want to do this, have the meetings. Apparently it's planned for. When can we schedule it? So a couple of other questions. Why would you fix Rockfield Road east of the tower? I understand the part west of the tower that's in pieces on the ground, but because it's part of the IGA. But when I worked as a developer, we were always tasked by cities, villages, if we wanted to go somewhere, we had to extend the sewer. Most of the work for the utility placement has already been done by what's already in place as a result of the current TIDs and I'm talking about Rockfield, the Rockfield area. It'll be relatively easy to extend. And if a developer really wants to go there and it works because the neighborhood meeting said, yes, that's okay, and it's part of the 2050 plan, then yeah, why not? So I think you should let the developers pay and not, why are we pre-paying a TID development when we don't even know what's going to go there? That doesn't make any sense. The last thing also to do with the railroad is, what if the company says no to the public crossing? I've looked up online and they have this slogan that says, the safest crossing is a private crossing or no crossing at all. They are all about closing public crossings and making them private or even taking them away. So again, this is a timing thing. Earlier at the previous meeting, I think it was, the village administration said that they don't know and they don't know exactly when that could happen. But it does seem premature. And it does seem like you're just stuffing more money into these TIDs that because we can and we want to pay for salaries and things like that. So I just think it's too soon. You haven't done the work of finishing up the neighborhood meetings. You don't even know if the public crossing doesn't happen, that would change the nature of the Freistadt area in terms of what you could plan for. So how can you even say yes when we don't know if the crossing can become public at this stage? Those are my comments. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to come forward? Please step forward.
Good evening. Scott Heffley, W159 N10514 Old Farm Road, Germantown. I echo the comments that are made earlier, and I'm adding a couple comments of my own. Some people have a misconception, and fortunately with what I do a lot of volunteering in the village, and a lot of people I know of because I've lived here a long time, and they come and talk to me because they're not comfortable coming here, and this is what they say. And you are all residents of the village. So what they say is, what's going on? How do I learn about it? Why are we doing all this? I don't have good answers for them. I have my opinion. Doesn't matter because their opinion is what matters, but we don't ask anyone's opinion. We just do what we do. So, I take a look at this. People think that we open TIDS and you get all this free infrastructure, and it's just a wonderful thing. It is a powerful development tool, but it's not, you're going to pay for it at some point. You don't get anything for free. And you that ever took an economics course, there's no such thing as a free lunch. There really isn't. So it all sounds wonderful till the TID opens, everyone's reassessed and retaxed, and you're going to pay for that. But yes, it's delayed. The delaying of money for public safety, the delaying of money for the schools, okay? These are what the residents are asking about because they don't know about TIDS. You guys up there know more than they do. So, I look at a curiosity. Why are we building a new road when we have roads that we know are under disrepair? Anybody think Maple Road's doing great? How about Division Road? Pilgrim needs patching. Go up to the northern part of the village, Pleasant View. Those people haven't had their roads paved in 45 years, okay? But we're looking to put new roads in. We're an MMSD land swap that's all wetlands, and we put $700,000 aside in a TID, but it's going to take $2.5 million to build an actual park out of it, which we were told at a previous meeting. This is not fake news. This is real news. So why are we doing all that? We have problems with our own parks keeping them up. Why would we try to build new parks? This all seems like a terrible idea. Now, okay, Scott, there's going to be development. Great. Well, let's talk about the fact that this looks to the villagers, call them that, premeditated. They knew ahead of time they want to do it. And who's they? Apparently, it seems to be a small group of people that are making decisions for everybody. And I'm not talking about the Plan Commission. I'm talking about village staff and maybe a couple village board people. I don't know. Who's going to ever push back on this and say, we got to take a harder look at this and not just ram development through and just put up all these roads and things? You're going to pay for that. Every mile of infrastructure, every water main, everything you put in becomes ongoing maintenance forever. Not just today, tomorrow, forever. And we already taken on Forever project with the Richfield IGA. You all know that. We're going to take care of their lines for 200 years over in Richfield. Part of the agreement. Didn't agree with it? That's what we're doing. So, and then I do all that, and I put a lot of time in this, and then I sit on a utility advisory commission, which really is never tasked with anything. We never look at anything. Once in a while, we do this or that. Why aren't we running things for the utility advisory committee? That's what we're there for. People are citizens, donate time to look over these things, and we give it to the board or public works. They can do whatever they want to with it. We're not even being asked to review this. Citizen people on a board not being asked, okay? So it looks like the cart before the horse. How about resident input before we start moving on to these projects where it becomes a rubber stamp through GRB and this committee and wherever else? Is that fair? Neighborhood meetings, promised through the 2050 plan. Everybody up there knows it. Everybody sitting up there knows. As part of we need to pass this, Scott, so we can do the neighborhood meetings and see what the future of Germantown looks like. We are not doing that. People that come up before me, we ask for neighborhood meetings, neighborhood meetings. We have yet to have a neighborhood meeting for the people that are affected. Guess what we're doing tonight? Last thing. Now we take the TID money because we can expand it out half a mile, and now we're affecting all those people that thought, well, hey, I'm not within the TID. I can't be affected by it. I'm okay. Well, now you're throwing stuff at them. Do they ever have a right, the people within that half mile, to ask you or anyone here, why are we doing this and why? Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to come forward? As a trustee or as a resident?
I'll be resident, Jan. Oh. Good evening, commissioners and Pro Tem Chair David Baum. Thanks for having me here. I have a few points. I'd like to echo what everyone else before me said. I'm a 30-year resident. You all are residents. You're all intelligent. We respect you. You've been put on the board, the commission, or you were elected, and that speaks volumes. So we're looking to you to make a great decision. And as other people have said, as a resident, we were promised neighborhood meetings. Oh, and where were those neighborhood meetings supposed to be? Holy Hill and the Freistadt District, as well as the Village Center. And now we're sitting around and we're getting all these reports, all these asks for more money. I don't care if it comes out of a TID or goes in a TID, or it has to come out of the budget. For example, we have two big projects going on by Holy Hill, and one of them is Green Bay Packaging. They're on for tonight. And I explained to them the same night I think Truck Country came on, and they might be on, I'm not sure. But we had to cut our budget, the village budget for 2024, $100,000 for the library and $125,000 for Park and Rec. Those people need more help. They need their budgets back. We had to cut the library hours, and yet we can sit here and say it's okay to go into debt, add to the TID. It's not going to hurt anybody. Well, if you keep putting these debts out, putting all the debt into the TID, we're going to have to wait. So all the taxing authorities have to wait. That includes the village, the school district, the MATC, and Washington County. And the school district is very concerned. We don't know, if you don't know what you're going to put in those districts, how are we supposed to know if we're supposed to build a school? It's not a good position to be put into. So I implore you to have neighborhood meetings, hire more people in the planning, in the community director assistant area, and hear some of these projects out. It's like we're shooting darts at the side of a barn. Where is it going to land? I'm not confident that any one of you know. And if you don't know, you shouldn't be voting on this, and you shouldn't be voting yes. There was one other thing that bothered me. Oh, yes. High Point Road. We get, I don't know, 60 acres. You can correct me if I'm wrong. For the MMSD property, it's free. But guess what? We have to put in a road. Why? Why do we need a road? The road goes nowhere. We don't have a crossing for the railroad. It's a road that goes nowhere. If Truck Country needs a driveway, maybe they should put it in. We have Green Bay Packaging across the street on Holy Hill Road. They're putting in their own driveway. Let's think about this. Let's be logical. Use your common sense. Vote no.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to come forward? Anybody else? Seeing none, I will bring this public hearing to a close. Director Retzloff, where do we go from here? Take it up at the board level or committee level?
To pass this along to the village board, the plan commission should take action on the resolutions that were included in their packet. A resolution 01-2024 and 02-2024 are two resolutions that effectively pass along the plan commission's recommendation of approval of the amendments to the TID as presented.
Okay. Board, does everybody understand the work that is to be done in TID 7 and TID 8? It is road work and utility work. You understand the extent of the work and how it's being done and why it's being done? If you would like an explanation, we can have that given.
I'd like
Start
to.
on the end with Josh.
I understand the work that's being proposed to be done. Is it going Rockfield Road like to the east past the school?
No,
No.
That's what I-
no, it's
I thought
Rockfield
part of
Road.
that,
It's two parts. It's the east and west end of Rockfield Road. And the Richfield Water, their project is putting a water line under the road, and therefore they will tear up the road. And while you've got it all open, it was decided that we should just go ahead and put the sewer line in at the same time so that when they pave the road is fresh. The eastern half of the road up to
Goldendale.
Goldendale.
is ripped up. It's just torn up.
Yeah.
It's in bad shape. It needs to be repaired.
But it's nothing east of Goldendale.
No,
Yeah.
it's Goldendale to 41. That's all the work that's going to be done, but it's shown in two phases, the east and the west. And if we're rebuilding the road on the east end, while we've got it torn up, should we put the water and sewer in the ground instead of ripping the road up again in 5 years and putting another road in a second time? So that's the extent of that road.
And then just a real basic question. As much as I try to understand every aspect of it and read the cash flow statement, what does the village get when the TID closes? As far as like a number, like the number that we're asking to,
What is the
Raise it by
tax
in
increment that is then coming into the four
Valley
taxing bodies?
gets, and what more does it get because of adding this debt?
Bill, can you elaborate upon that? Answer that question? That one's fine.
It's a very complicated answer, but I'm
I'm here all night.
not going to discuss some of the items that were brought up, but when you close a tax increment district out in the state of Wisconsin, every municipality is under levy limits.
Every what?
So
Say that one more. What was that one?
every municipality is under levy limits.
Okay.
So levy limits is as simple as you take last year's budget and you're able to grow that budget by net new construction. So net new construction is just that. It's not the value of somebody's house going up, but rather new construction that happens in the village. So normally, most communities are somewhere between 1% and 2%, maybe less, maybe a little bit more. But net new construction is range between 1% and 2% statewide. So every year, the municipality, the village, has the ability to increase your budget by 1% to 2% based on net new construction. Except for when you close out a tax increment district, you have the ability then to take net new construction, what you would normally get, plus you get an extra increase as a result of the TID closure. So the TID closure, the law, the tax increment law, allows a municipality to take, and it's a calculation, 50% of the value of what was in the TID, equalized value, and you're able to increase your levy What, you get a there's a calculation behind it, but you have the ability to increase your levy by a larger percentage that year when you close out the district. So just say that's 5% in that year. So that's one benefit, right? So when you have the ability to increase your levy when you close out the district, at the same time, the other 50% goes to tax relief. And so you're not able to increase your budget by the full amount of the value that's in the TID when you close it. You're only allowed to take 50% of that. And the legislature, when they modified the TID law, wanted tax relief as part of it. So you'll see a drop in the mill rate at the same time. So when you close out a district and all the value comes on, if you take TID number 8 and it's $200 million, you're going to see a drop in the mill rate at the same time, a bump in the levy for a municipality to be able to grow at that point or increase their budget. So that's what happens when you close out a TIF district. So it's complicated, yes, but because everybody's under levy limits, it's kind of a simple, it's the same calculation for any municipality, any size district, you just go through the calculation. And during that time, you're right, the other taxing bodies are waiting as well for that bump in valuation. That's why they have a seat at the table, the Joint Review Board, and they vote on these. And so they aren't left out of the discussion at all. They have the final vote of whether or not a TID amendment or creation will take place. So I mentioned the May 6th meeting, that's the Joint Review Board meeting, where they get together, representatives from each of the taxing bodies, and they vote on these as well. So they have a seat at the table as well.
Thank you. And does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Shadid, you had questions.
That was my question also. So I guess there's probably no way then for us to be able to see some benefit after the end of the TID. That's what always confuses me. That we do all this, but here's another lady who's confused about that. What did she say here? TIDs that help benefit the village, if at all. See if they do, but we don't have a way to measure that, I guess. I don't know. That's what's confusing.
We could provide, I don't know if it'd be beneficial, but you did close out, help me, Jeff, was it TID 3, the large industrial park? 4, thank you. So when TID 4 closed out, you're under levy limits at that point
Right.
as well. So when TID 4 closed out, you could go back and look and see what the adjustment was under levy limits of what the village had the ability to increase their levy by. At the same time, during that same time period, once the district was closed out the following year, you would have seen a drop in the mill rate at the same time.
And when that,
So that's the calculation that has to be done to better understand what the impact is. We don't include that as part of our analysis just because, quite frankly, we don't know exactly when the district.
You don't know what
will
else
close
is
out,
going on. Yeah.
and we don't know what's going to happen every year with the TID law and the levy limit law. I mean, there's modifications to it every year. So it's the best information we have available right now.
Okay. Thank you.
when we closed out TID 4, that's when we brought the fire department on full time. We used the revenue that was generated from TID 4 and paid for the start of our fire department. That's when
It is kind of a smoke and mirrors thing. I mean, to a regular citizen, I can see the comments. But I also was pretty sure that did actually happen.
Yeah.
I mean, we are making money. We are charging taxes. Okay.
Yes.
I had one other thing I wanted to say, and I'm not sure that it fits with your question, but I'm going to say it
Go
anyway.
ahead.
I've been to some of the early citizen meetings we had before the 2050 plan was completed. One area where I think we probably could do a good job is why don't we set those up and start doing it? I kind of enjoyed it when we have them.
Mhm.
Is it a problem?
No, it's not a problem. It's still in our,
I mean, I know it takes everybody's time. I know it's inconvenient to think about doing it. I do. I don't mean that sarcastically.
Yeah.
But I do know that in the end, we show some credibility.
it's still in the plans to have the citizen input meetings.
Well, I'd suggest that we make it sooner rather than later.
Well, the intention is to have those meetings as part of the individual neighborhood master plan activities. We're not going to hold,
I'm
at
not
least we're
fully
not planning on
connecting it.
holding.
I'm not connecting it with tonight necessarily. Yes, it's part of it, but I mean, just overall, it's a good idea for us as a body to make sure that happens.
Right.
Sooner rather than later.
Yes.
Yes. So the other part of this is the TID 7 work and the question of what's going into the Freistadt district and why there's no plan for it. Right now, we're responding to getting the water and the sewer through there. And that is going in with the IGA. So that has a route established and they're starting the design work on that. And that water and sewer comes in to Freistadt Road and then goes east on Freistadt to Goldendale at that intersection
Correct.
and then ties back into the system. And the question is, while we've got Freistadt torn up, should we run the water and sewer west to the interstate while we rebuild the whole road? That's where TID 7 comes from. So while you've got it all torn up, we also do this additional work at the same time. Instead of coming back and tearing it up again later and paying twice for it.
The only other thing I could add is how the plans that we've made in this area, how is it affected by that railroad crossing? And I'm gonna make a comment. I heard somebody mention it tonight. Some years back, when the Wisconsin and Southern Railroad was privately owned, you remember that? Okay. I was on kind of a citizens railroad I'm a rail fan, so I was there in meetings. They talked about their business. They talked about what their goals were. Interesting to be there, interesting times. But I do remember that railroad had that goal. They made a comment that they wanted to eliminate every railroad crossing they could. So when I look at this, what would actually happen if they say, no, we're not gonna have any railroad crossings in this whole area? So how would that affect what we want to do? In other words, should we be doing this before that's approved?
Well, certainly the extension of utilities to Richfield is going through no matter
Yeah,
what.
that's probably right. Okay. That's by agreement.
And the construction of Freistadt and the utilities along that corridor to the High Point Pass Road as shown on the graphic on the screen in the dash blue. That's going through that right away regardless. And the need for the additional improvements along Freistadt Road frankly need to take place whether or not the crossing is approved, because ultimately the Freistadt district is going to develop. The question is whether or not the crossing is going to have a significant enough impact that the current plan under the vision plan and the 2050 comprehensive plan for it to be a business park and mixed use commercial and higher density residential is actually come to fruition with or without that crossing. So the development may become less intensive and less dense if the crossing isn't approved, but this development is going to take place in that area regardless. In part, that's what we're planning for with some of these improvements, and the timing coincides with the Richfield utility extensions through this area, ultimately all the way across north of Holy Hill to Rockfield Road.
I guess I'm just concerned about what it will do for the whole development area there south of the railroad tracks. I don't know.
As far as,
Pardon?
as far as, would
We're able
no
to-
development happen south of the
Well,
railroad tracks
if
if
it-
there's?
If it did, it would have to happen off of Freistadt Road, right? And it would not off of, it wouldn't have access to Holy Hill Road area. It would have to come from the south, right?
It comes south to Freistadt or east to Goldendale.
Which would involve a change in our plans. That's what I meant. Just is it a possibility that we are doing this before we have all the answers?
The infrastructure is going to be needed regardless. It's whether or not it's going to be a higher density residential or a business park.
Okay, well,
That's where the planning comes in.
yeah,
Then the water and sewer is going through with the IGA. That's a given. Already in the works.
And these are the sort of backbone improvements required to support future land use in and around all of those areas. The fact that we're leveraging the TIDs and taking advantage of the half-mile radius within which you can include projects and their costs in the TID, while the development will occur outside of the TID and go on to the tax rolls immediately, is part of the benefit of doing it in this way.
My only concern is, all right, will it change it enough that the investment or the return we expect to get would be markedly different from what we're seeing on a plan? And maybe we don't know that. So if it became residential, for instance, instead of industrial, how does that affect it? How does that affect our return? You mentioned
Yeah,
residential.
Phil, if you want to come up here and respond to that.
We're not counting on, from a tax increment standpoint, we're not counting on revenue from new development in this area to support the TIDs. Because the TID districts are not down in that area. That's not part of the development that occurs there is not part of the cash flows that we have built. So it doesn't have any impact if it's industrial or residential.
On the TID.
And the other thing, if you don't mind, one more.
Sure.
Okay. This is a plan. These are plans. And these project costs are being added to the plans as eligible to be paid for out of the TID fund. It doesn't change the normal process for the village to approve projects. All the projects that are listed that I went through for both TIDs will still have to go to the village board for approval. This doesn't give them, a blank check to just do projects. They come in front of the village board for approval. Just like any other project would. Just where is the funding coming from?
Further questions? Mr. Williams?
My questions are going to focus on the financial, the aspects of your plan, so I might need you to go back up. My first question is, on TID 8, for example, we're showing a large cumulative cash flow throughout the whole project. And I'm curious, two things. One is what decision is made when to close out the TID? For example, I see $20.5 million in cumulative balance, which would more than cover the amount of the bonds that are outstanding. So why would we not close it earlier? Are there prepayment penalties on the bonds that prevent us from doing it? And then two, the second part of that is what happens to all that cumulative cash flow when the TID closes?
Yeah, the whole point. The little shading area, that's when we actually anticipate having enough revenue collected to pay off the remaining obligations.
Okay, but in your plan, like on those general obligation, commercial
Yeah.
or corporate purpose bonds, they continue to be paid off, all the way through to.
Yeah, we could
to the
prepay
end.
those, we could
You
pay them
could
off.
pay them off
yeah.
earlier.
Yep.
Okay, so no prepayment penalties.
If
And-
there is, we would escrow the funds necessary out of the TID to pay the remaining obligations.
Okay,
But that would not dictate the closure.
that would not, okay. And what happens to the remaining cumulative cash flow once the TID closes?
So if there's residual increment sitting in there after you pay off all the obligations, they get distributed to all the taxing authorities.
Okay,
Just like any other tax, if think about the pie chart.
Mhm.
So the school gets roughly 50%, the village gets about 25%, and county and technical college the rest. So if there's a residual increment in the TID when they close out, it gets distributed to the other taxing bodies.
so they're not missing out on
No.
anything? No, okay. I know you have some charts in there broken out between the taxing jurisdictions as to how much they're
Yep.
covering. I was like, okay. Second question, interest rates. I see your assumptions in here. I think on TID 7, you're at 3 3/4, and TID 8, you're at 3. Is there a reason there's a difference between the two?
The
And
term.
just the
term.
size of the term? Okay.
The term.
And I went back and looked in 22, the last time we issued these bonds, and you guys it looked like bids were between 3.85 and 4. And I know interest rate climates have changed. We still think you're
Yeah.
going to be able to finance at 3?
Yeah, I think we're conservative, a little conservative on both estimates.
Okay, like conservative, like you're going to be able to finance at a lower rate or at a higher, really
The
lower
term
than
that we're
3?
Talking about, yes.
Okay. All right. And then last question, you have a couple sections in here where you identify that not all of the cost being paid for the expenses that are being financed through the TID. I think it's in section 14. The language says approximately 50% of each of these costs listed above, or 4.93 million, are non-TID project costs being paid for from other sources. But you list the $4.93 million of costs that are being paid for TID. So is it an additional 4.93 million that's not being paid out of TID? I'm just
Yeah,
trying to understand
a
that.
significant portion of it is coming from Village of Richfield. They're a contributor to this. Some of it will come from the water and sewer utility and from the general fund likely as well. Again, we can only allocate a portion of the overall costs back to the tax increment districts because there's going to be other benefiting properties outside of the district. So what we've used at this point is roughly 50%.
Okay. All right. And sorry, I lied. I did have one more question.
That's quite right.
In TID 7, you have estimated payments coming from JW Speaker for a shortfall. Is that because they haven't generated the tax bases that they were projected to over the period of time? So they are having to come out of pocket for the portion of the taxes that they didn't generate through the TID?
Yeah, they had a second expansion that they had identified. They didn't do the second expansion. So there's a provision within their development agreement that calls for them to make a shortfall payment on existing debt service in the district. Because Capstone came online, there is really no shortfall. However, the calculation still has to be done with JW Speaker that says, this is the debt that was taken out for your project. This is the revenue you're generating. If there's an annual shortfall, you are due that.
Okay.
So that's where those calculations come from.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions? Mr. Nelson?
Just going right down the line here. The utilities and the roadways that we're talking about funding here, how do we know if they're sized appropriately if we haven't finished our planning exercise with those yet?
You want me to take a crack at that? We have worked with the engineering department to do assumptions based on the worst case scenario
Okay.
of the full area.
All right.
Even though we are not planning on running water and sewer to the north, it is projected if it had to go up there, could it still support it, and do we size it accordingly? So everything was sized on the worst case scenario that we may want to do it at some point. There may be a need at some point. We can handle it if it does occur.
Good.
Safe assumption, Mr. Krecklow? Yes.
All right. That was it. Thank you.
Mr. Leszewski?
Just do we have any idea when there's a decision to be made on that railroad crossing? I mean, do we have any visibility into that?
We'll ask Mr. Krecklow to step forward. He might have some information on that for us.
Yeah, I can provide a quick update on that process. So the village board a couple of months ago approved a resolution that's the first step in the process to request a railroad crossing. That goes through, it's actually not Wisconsin Southern who approves it. It's the Office of the Commissioner of Railroads and the Department of Transportation that make the decision. So, even though the railroads do tend to not want any additional crossings, it's not their decision. It is the state's decision in the end. We actually met last week. There's a packet of information that's necessary. It has to be submitted in order to get the review process started. And that's more or less complete at this point. However, we did talk with our consultant who's working through that process with us, and one of the things that they recommended is we may want to hold off on submitting it until we've completed the transactions where we own the right of way on either side of the railroad. So at this point, the right of way that comes up from Freistadt Road up to the railroad is being acquired by the village of Richfield as part of the Richfield IGA. That's the same route that the sewer and water is going to follow. The section from the railroad north to Holy Hill Road is going to be acquired by the village through our development agreement with Truck Country. So that is coming forward in the next couple of months. Both of those processes should be complete in the May, June timeline, in which case then we would submit the application to the Office of Commissioner of Railroad. It's a little bit difficult to say how long that process is going to take, but I think, 6 months plus or minus a month or two is probably a good estimate. And I guess if I could go just a little bit further to talk about some of the timing issues and some of the questions about this. That has been kind of a challenge for planning, like the size of the roads, the size of the utilities, et cetera. What Trustee Baum mentioned before is for the water and sewer, it is being sized to eventually serve an area that's in the long-term plans, like over the next 50 years, where that could expand to. When it comes to the size of the roads, it's largely being driven by the amount of right-of-way that's currently available. There's nothing in these projects for acquisition of additional right-of-way. And I think the thought from staff was, Rockfield Road is in terrible condition. It needs to be redone. There's only, I think, 88 feet of right-of-way that's available. It's not a real wide road, but it could be designed that if there is at some point in the future, there may or may not be, but if there is development north of Rockfield Road, it could be expanded at that point. But this way, at least we're addressing the needs of the people who are already there. And Freistadt Road is again, the profile is pretty limited because of there's already development on both sides that kind of limits the ability to do much else with the road other than stick with the current profile. High Point Pass is one we're working with the engineers to probably look at that as a two-phase, and again with a road that's constructed and designed to meet the needs of the property owners north of the railroad. There are, in addition to Truck Country, there's Holy Hill Storage, which I may or may not. The ownership group from Holy Hill Storage may or may not look to develop to something else. And then on the east side of the road, there's a parcel that's owned by MLG, and they have been looking to develop that. So trying to design that road to meet the needs of those property owners again, but looking at right of way that's potential to expand in the event that railroad crossing is granted and it becomes a more of an arterial rather than just servicing the property owners in that area.
And can you talk about the need for getting this done now? Is more along the lines of planning? Do we plan for it or not plan for it? We want to get it into planning phases, so we want to approve it now so that people can make the plans for it.
And I would add to that, the other key component is coordination of construction. And, for the Richfield project on Freistadt and on Rockfield Road, Freistadt, the planning process and design process is very far along. They're anticipating going out for bids on the Freistadt project this fall yet, this August or September, with work starting towards the end of this year. Rockfield Road will probably be about a year behind that. And from staff's perspective, again, one of the questions that we took to the village board when we started this process was, does the village board want to look at trying to coordinate these projects so that we're doing that entire segment of Freistadt Road and that entire segment of Rockfield Road at one time, so that we don't, reconstruct the western half of Rockfield Road. And then if there is a development proposal in 3 years or 5 years, go in and have to rip up the road that was recently done to put the sewer main in. And likewise on Freistadt. The thought was, It would be better for the infrastructure, it would be more cost efficient, and it would be, less inconvenience for neighboring residents to try to get these projects done all at one time rather than doing them piecemeal. And that's certainly, it's a policy decision for the Plan Commission and the village board, if that's the approach that you want to take. But that was a significant part of the recommendation on the timing of it, why we thought it was important to move forward with it now rather than wait until additional planning was complete, and then have, basically two independent construction projects in each of these roads.
Further questions? No questions? We need a motion.
Is there, what page is it on? Is it in here?
If you go to,
There isn't.
There's just the resolution.
Oh, I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of the two resolutions as outlined,
TID 7 and 8.
TID 7 and 8.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's 4 in favor, 2 against. Motion carries. It's approved. All right, that brings us on to the next item. Thank you, Phil. Crew car wash. Let me get that open up here. Crew car wash agent for Nami's Investment LLC property owner is requesting site plan approval and conditional use permit to allow the construction and operation of a 4,512 square foot self-serve car wash facility located at North 96 West 17500 County Line Road. Director Etzloff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The property in question is approximately an acre in size. It's located on the north side of County Line Road, as highlighted on the screen. The zoning is B5 highway business and surrounded by properties with the same B5 highway business zoning. McDonald's to the west, Hotel 8 to the north, Landmark Credit Union to the east. The site is currently a BP gas station and convenience mart and car wash. And the proposal is to redevelop the entire site with a brand new crew car wash. Crew car wash is new to the area. It is a family-owned business founded in 1948 in Indiana. It has 45 car wash locations between Indiana and Minnesota, and is expanding into Wisconsin and gratefully into the village of Germantown. The operation would be Sunday to Saturday, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. It would employ approximately 25 total employees with 2 to 5 employees per shift, 2 to 3 shifts per day. As I indicated, the site would include removal of the existing buildings, gasoline storage tanks, and the car wash, and complete redo of the infrastructure and the parking and driveways on the site. This copy shows the proposed site plan. It is effectively a what I guess call a tunnel system car wash. You enter on the, in this case, on the north side and exit on the south. It includes a subscription type business plan, if you will. That seems to be very popular these days throughout the area. The building improvements here include a 4,500 square foot car wash building, including a separate 345 square foot kiosk with canopy and a 4-lane 20 vehicle staging area. 9 stall vacuum bays and a 5 stall employee parking lot, a flat roof with roof mounted mechanicals, Materials include a 20-foot height on the main building with a 35-foot high tower feature, a CMU wall units with the ground face, a red color with a knee wall and upper banding of limestone split face CMU with a buff color. The tower features comprised of architectural panels with a pewter color, aluminum frame, anodized windows and door systems, and overhead supported window canopies as shown in the elevations. Here is a copy of the landscape plan. As indicated in the staff report, there are a couple of concerns with the landscaping. The amount of impervious area is being expanded on the site, including to the north, where there's an existing established hedge, a nice buffer screen. Could use some work, but it's fairly well established. In this case, it's being completely removed and replaced with a retaining wall, and simply some grass being replaced. Ideally, we'd want to see some additional screening to replace the existing screening. And also on the east side of the site, there's an existing very large specimen type tree on the site that is to be removed. Again, it is being replaced simply with sod for a future snow storage area. The landscaping throughout is meets the code requirements. It's minimal. And as the village forester has pointed out, he's calling for some additional perimeter landscaping on the site. Grading is shown here. Generally, the site is sheet flow to either on-site storm sewer to the south and also to a new rain garden feature in the southeast corner of the property. Utilities are being brought in from the north. They currently are, but they're being replaced and upgraded through private easements across the hotel property to the north. The proposed use is consistent with the County Line Road District in the 2050 plan. I indicated the staff's concern with landscaping. The utility construction does require some private easements on the hotel property to the north that will need to be obtained. And what I didn't show is the signage package. Frankly, I didn't see this until the end, and we need an actual application along with some reductions in some of the sign area and height to bring it into code compliance. The overall sign package, as you might have noticed, is a little bit excessive in terms of the amount of signage. They're going to be reusing the existing pylon sign that's 50 feet high on the site. They're also planning on the tower feature to have signage on all three sides. There's 2 monument signs that are proposed. And so staff is asking for that the Plan Commission table action on the sign package until we can, staff can meet further with the developer and put together a code compliant sign package that we can review at the next meeting. The village engineer has some comments and technical corrections identified in an April 3rd review memo. And again, we have some comments from the village forester in the packet. The staff recommendation is to, 1, approve a conditional use permit for the construction and operation of a car wash facility at the site, subject to 6 conditions. Approve the site development and building plans for the car wash facility, including a 4,512 square foot car wash facility and 345 square foot kiosk and canopy, subject to 7 conditions. And then, as I mentioned, recommending table action on the sign package pending further revision. We do need to hold a public hearing for the conditional use component of the applications, and that is effectively for the operation of a car wash facility from this location.
Okay. All right, I will call a public hearing to order. stating notice is hereby given that public hearing will be held before the Village of Germantown Plan Commission at the Germantown Village Hall located at North 112 West 17001 Mequon Road, Germantown, Wisconsin, and virtually through the WebEx platform on the following date and time noted below. That would be tonight, Monday, April 8th at 6:30 PM or later. The purpose of said hearing is to hear all parties, their attorneys or agents for and against a conditional use permit application for a self-serve car wash, for the property described below pursuant to section 17.32, parent 3, parent G of the Village Zoning Code. Applicant is Crew Car Wash, agent for Nami's Investment, LLC, property owner. Property address is North 96 West 17500 County Line Road. We go on to have the description of the property. I take it you're the applicant, sir?
Yes, or at least the attorney for the applicant.
The attorney for the applicant.
Good evening. I'm Brian Randall, attorney with Amundsen Davis, 111 East Kilbourne Avenue in Milwaukee, here on behalf of Crew Car Wash. In the back row, I have a couple of my colleague clients from Crew, Travis Smith and Catherine Rayner. Certainly could answer any operational questions or design-related issues, but also with me, Dustin Salter from Excel Engineering is our civil engineer. He's been leading the site plan and designing process for Excel. Dustin and I come out of our Wisconsin offices, but Crew, as Jeff mentioned, is from Indiana originally. They are in Minnesota as well and looking to have one of their first Wisconsin locations here in the Village of Germantown. We did have the opportunity to meet with staff back last year, actually last December, covered a lot of ground. I guess one of the things that I omitted was though grabbing that sign application. So we recognize that our signage plan and our package will be tabled tonight, but we will continue to work with staff in that regard. We also did review all of the conditions, the 6 on the conditional use and the 7 on the site plan, and we can work with those conditions, notably the landscaping requests and some of the changes to the plans, as well as all the technical requirements. So as it relates to the public hearing, though, on a conditional use, this is a very high traffic area. The current gas station does have a car wash as it is, but we propose to demolish everything, reconfigure the site, and invest in this site in the village to have the first Crew Car Wash in the southeastern Wisconsin area. If there are any questions as you go along, please let us know, but we're really looking forward to investing here in the village. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody wishing to come forward for comment? For or against?
I just have a question. I just have a question about efflorescence and masonry, and what do you do for that? Because a lot of those buildings tend to look all kind of limey after a while. Is there something that you do with the construction details to prevent that?
Typically, we can seal a building or we can spray wash it.
Okay, because it
Those are the two
can look
solutions.
really bad.
Those are the two solutions. You
That was
seal it or spray wash it. Further questions? No further questions? All right, I will close this public hearing. Committee, we have a motion. We have 3 items. 1 is to be tabled, 2 are needing action. First one would be the conditional use permit with 6 conditions.
I remove approval of the conditional use permit with the 6 conditions outlined on our report.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just had a question,
Yes.
not really relating, I'm sure it's been handled, but what happens with the underground gasoline that's there now? How is that handled?
Generally, the tanks are removed by the contractor and they're tested for contamination and any.
Are they like removed and is it land filled or what do we, I'm just curious about it.
There's a DNR, if you want to come forward. I take it you're Travis. You don't look like a.
I'm sure it's gonna be handled properly. I just,
Yeah, Travis Smith with Crew Car Wash. Yeah, the state of Wisconsin has very strict regulations of how that's all handled. They're all taken out of the ground. There's testing. We've done testing already on the site, but they're taken out of the ground. The soil's tested. It's backfilled per the state's code. Each state's a little bit different.
okay.
And so they're basically pulled and backfilled.
I wasn't critical of what you were doing. I just was curious about the
No,
process.
I totally understand. Yeah, it's fortunately with this project, we've had some time to get testing of what's there on the site. We have a good idea of what's there and how to take care of it. So.
Thank you.
Monitored,
Thank you.
monitored and overseen by the DNR? They're the ones that-
Yes,
and
I
then-
believe so. Again, there's some differences state by state, but typically, yes, it's run through the DNR.
You have to get a closeout document that notifies the state.
Yeah,
that
a no
those
further
things-
action letter. Yeah.
Okay. Further questions? I'm gonna go with Mr.
For
Lushewski.
the applicant, on page 173, this PDF, there's like a spray bar or something outside. What's that?
It's a bug spray gate. So in non-winter months, when bugs are the worst, our customers had issues in the springtime with excessive bugs in the front of their cars. And we found the most effective way to treat it was to have a gate before they actually went into the car wash where it pre-soaked their bumper with cleaning. The way that turn is made into the car wash, the solution of the cleaning runs down the entrance to the tunnel into the car wash and gets put back in the recirculation cleaning system. But that's to answer your question. That's what it is.
How do you limit essentially like overspray and super windy days?
Yeah, there are days when it's extremely windy where they won't operate it for that reason.
Is
If,
that-
if it's to the point where it's not going to hit the car, they'll just put it up where it stays up like it would be in the winter, and they don't use it.
Is that like an automated system or is
Yes.
it based on, I mean, the
Similar
decision
to-
not to spray that day, is that just?
Oh, no, that's an employee. That's an employee who would put the arm up permanently for the day. As far as the system, when it's in your use during a normal day, it's similar to the system that allows the cars individually out of the queue and to get in line single file. This arm recognizes the vehicle, sprays the vehicle, and is on a timer to go up to allow them through.
If there was oversprayed, is it damaging to bushes, shrubs, grass, paint, something like that?
We typically, if you look at the site plan, typically, on most of the sites we do, we have landscaping immediately adjacent to that spray gate.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Williams, you had a question?
Right, it says that the self-serve car wash.
Mhm.
And like somebody's gonna pull in and wash their car, but this is not a self-serve car wash. This.
Yeah, it's referred to as a self-serve car wash because we're not in possession of your vehicle. You stay inside.
Okay.
So because the customer pulls up to the gate, is either a member, so they have an RFID scanner, or chooses their individual wash and goes through, they stay in the car the whole time.
Okay.
You're right, it is a little confusing, but because you don't leave the vehicle and then have an employee drive it through, that's why it's referred to that way.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. Further questions? All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the conditional use. No further questions? Yes, sir.
Is the landscaping, the requirements that Jeff indicated, that's part of the deal, is that those will be revised, or does that have to be separated?
And that is
Those are in the site plan
that's
application,
part two.
part two.
That's all.
We're only on part one, which is the conditional use. Can I put a car wash here? Okay. No further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That was opposed?
It was an opposed.
Okay, so we got 5-4, 1 against. Motion carries. Next one would be the approval of the site development and building plans submitted by J. Crew.
I will move approval of the site development and building plans submitted by Crew Car Wash.
With the 7 amendments,
Pardon?
with the 7 amendments?
With the 7 amendment, yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Conditions.
Conditions, yes.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Nilles.
I am mildly shocked that there's so much pavement on this property. Why do we need 4 rows of staging? 20 cars? It seems like a lot.
Travis, Catherine, would you like to come forward and answer that? Because it's not a general construction question that I.
You know, the 4 rows of staging has more to do with the width than the depth. So what we found at our typical locations is what works best for our customers is if we have 2 members that are for customers that are monthly members who have passes in their windshields. They pull up to the gate, it opens automatically, they go through. The 2 lanes on the left are for what we would call cash customers who select their individual wash for that day. They're not members of Crew Car Wash. Make their selection, go through the same way. But what we found is that 4 lanes just works better than 3. So it's more an issue of width than length.
How often do you see all 20 of those spots being occupied?
All the way back like that? Rarely. Again, it's not, the issue, the stacking is not designed that way because we typically hold that number of cars deep. It's because we find that it works better if there's 2 lanes for customers that are members, 2 lanes for members that for customers that are not.
It seems like you could skinny that down. The other question that I had was just on the circulation in general. So cars pull in, they go through this staging area, they pay, or they swipe their badge or whatever. Then they drive around the north side and turn south and go through the car wash, correct?
Yes.
And then to use the vacuums, they pull out and then drive back up into that center area. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then when they're done with the vacuums, they come back out that same direction and leave. I guess I'm not following the full circulation. And frankly, if it's what I think it is, it doesn't make sense. I don't think it would work very well.
The way the 2 access points are set up is that they're both in and outs. Because the traffic light here sits to the west and there's the access point to the east coming off the highway, we didn't think it made sense for them to be 1 in, 1 out. So they're in and out both directions with signage to make it clear where they're going to enter and when they exit, where they go to exit or go to the vacuum.
I agree that 1 entrance and exit would be insufficient, but I just still don't think with the 2 that are set up like this, I think there's still going to be a lot of confusion. Maybe that's why there's all this question on signage right now, but it just seems like it's a confusing layout. And it would be hard to navigate. That's it.
Well, can I expound on that? There's an arrow right in the center. This one goes up and one goes down. And the one on the right going up. So how do you exit that area?
The reason that there's 2 arrows, this area here would be blocked off. It's an emergency exit for a car that's been through this section but can't go through the wall. So if someone, it's a truck with an ambulance in the bed that one of the employees didn't see, and they're not supposed to go through the wash, that's what we call the escape lane. There's a mechanism to block it that can be raised and lowered. That's why the 2 arrows show going both directions. But for 99% of customers, if they choose to vacuum their own car, they would leave here, make this turn, pull into a space, come back out.
But again, on Peter, with the 4 lanes, what is it, 5 deep? Wouldn't there be some benefit to maybe just making 2 lanes coming in and having it widen out into 4 at some point? So you never have to have that additional pavement and maybe more area to put snow. I guess it'd be the kind of lower right quadrant of that square where the 2 up arrows are. If you could, extend that landscaping straight north as it were. Almost like McDonald's does that. You come in 1 lane and it opens up into 2 or 3. You need less paving and you have more area for snow.
Yeah, generally speaking, my response is that we found that layouts that are configured in this way work the best for our customers. At the same time, we're certainly going to work with staff to find more space on the property to put landscaping. So.
Frankly, that's not a bad suggestion, considering that the large tree that's located on the east side of the property is right in the vicinity of where that new light pole is shown with the red box and the red circle. So if you were able to peel back that curbing further interior and like was suggested, have the 2 lanes coming in and then open up to 4 once you got past that large tree, it's worth considering.
work with staff on that? They have to come back for landscaping to staff level anyway?
Yeah,
You make that another condition? Work with staff about that tree?
You want me to add that as, well, no, I get it. So I will make an amendment to the motion that they work with staff to try to preserve the tree, the one tree on the property, so I don't think we need to identify it further than that, by extending the landscape buffering on the southeastern portion of the property out a little bit, to work with staff. I think it'd benefit you guys too. It'd be probably a little cheaper in the long run, but.
Have a motion to amend. Is there a second?
yeah. Yes,
There a second?
about halfway.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Before 4 and 2 against. I vote aye. I vote nay. Any further comments, questions, discussion? Okay, we'll go to the motion as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
5, 4, 1 against. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Welcome to the neighborhood. Welcome to Wisconsin.
Thank you.
We look forward to having you here. All right, next item on the agenda is. Oh, yeah, we got a table. Somebody needs to make a motion to table part 3.
Make a motion, we table the sign issue.
We have a motion and do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We table the sign issue. All in favor, any discussion? No discussion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Yes. He's still there. He's still listening. Just because I didn't get it right, doesn't mean he left. All right, next item on the agenda is Village of Germantown Community Development Department text amendments. Director Retzloff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a series of minor text amendments to Section 17, the zoning code, including some new definitions, clarification of accessory building and structure requirements, clarification of our temporary use permit requirements. The amendments in your packet are broken out into essentially 4 sets of amendments. The first set, amendment number 1, section 1 in the draft ordinance included in your packet, specifically provides more than one temporary use permit may be granted in succession by the zoning administrator or plan commission. The reason for this addition is historically the granting of more than one temporary use permit in succession for a given use has occurred. It's somewhat common, if you will. Usually when the property owner is waiting to finalize plans or other steps needed to complete a permanent solution for the use or activity. For example, successive temporary use permits have been granted to the beer stube for expansion of the beer garden during COVID. Successive TUPs were granted to Goodwill Industries back when they were deciding whether to install a permanent donation drop-off facility in place of a semi-trailer they had parked in the Sendex parking lot a few years back. And staff simply feels this allowance needs to be spelled out in the code one way or another, just simply to make sure that people understand that it can happen. Frankly, we've issued temporary use permits to some individuals in order to give them time to clear up a code violation or situation on the property. And given circumstances, whether it be seasonal or otherwise, they've asked for a successive or a second temporary use permit, frankly, with good reason. But the pressure from the complaining neighbors and others to not do so has created issues where they've called into question whether or not you can actually have a second temporary use permit. So since staff believes that it's a good allowance to have, we would like to include language in the code that specifically provides for that. Amendment number 2 and 3, they go hand in hand. Amendment number 2 creates 2 definitions for 2 uses: horticultural services. This is a use cited in the zoning code currently, but not clearly defined. And snow removal services, a use that's not cited in the zoning code, but a use that's become frequently more common by individual operators who want to conduct this sort of use in zoning districts. And there's really no guidance on whether or not to allow that use in any zoning district for that matter. So staff would like to add these 2 definitions in the code. And Amendment 3, cut right to the chase, to create provisions in the M1 limited industrial zoning district to allow for horticultural services and snow removal services as conditional uses in that particular district. And finally, Amendment number 4 has to do with streamlining and clarifying restrictions on temporary storage structures. There's some gaps in the existing code. It doesn't specifically address all the residential districts or agricultural districts, so we're adding provisions to include all single-family, two-family, multifamily, and agricultural districts, and providing provisions for the use of temporary storage structures and when those uses require a temporary use permit. So with that, we can open up for a public hearing and take feedback on those particular changes.
Okay, I will open up the public hearing. Notice is hereby given that public hearing will be held before the Village of Germantown Plan Commission at the Germantown Village Hall located at North 112 West 17001, Mequon Road, Germantown, Wisconsin, and virtually through the WebEx platform on the following date and time noted below or soon thereafter. That would be Monday, April 8th, 2024, 6:30 PM or later. The purpose of said hearing will be to hear all parties, their attorneys or agents for and against the petition filed by the Village of Germantown Community Development Department for the purpose of text amendments to the following sections of the zoning code. Chapter 17 of the Village of Germantown Municipal Code, Section 17.07, temporary use, Section 17.08 definitions, 17.33 M1 limited industrial district, and 17.40 accessory use buildings and structures. A copy of the application and a map showing the property described above are on file with the Community Development Department, Planning and Zoning Services Office in the Village of Germantown and can be viewed on the Village Zoning Hub and website by following either of the links listed below. With that, is there anybody wishing to come forward for comment or statement? One more time, anybody wishing to come forward for comment? No one coming forward? I'll close the public hearing. Committee. Mr. Nilles.
Were we supposed to get these draft ordinances or draft changes? I don't see anything.
Page 175, or is that just?
That's just the description of them, but there's no. I think without having the information here, we're gonna have to table this.
Yes, it would be appropriate then to table action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table. Any discussion? Do we have to, when it comes back again, do we have to have another public hearing? Or is this satisfy the public hearing? We can just get to.
We can leave it open if we prefer.
I think you already did close it.
Yeah, I already closed it, so we will, if we have to open it, we'll open it next time. Okay, motion to table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously to table till next meeting. That brings us to Bryan Construction Group, Green Bay Packaging Company. Bryan Building Corporation, agent for Green Bay Packaging Company, Inc., property owner, is requesting approval of site development and building plans for a 270,000 square foot light manufacturing and 12,500 square foot office located at the northwest corner of Holy Hill Road and I-41 interchange in the Holy Hill Gateway District. Director Etzloff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Green Bay Packaging, the Great Lakes Division, has a long history in the village of Germantown, 50-plus years located in the Germantown, and they're looking to consolidate their existing operations. As we've heard in the past, more specifically back in November of last year and in July of last year, in our discussions with Green Bay Packaging, they're wanting to consolidate operations in 4 separate buildings in the industrial park, currently with approximately 160,000 square feet located on Carnegie Drive. They are involved in light manufacturing of corrugated containers, and they have acquired a almost 53-acre parcel, as shown on the screen, in the northeast corner of the Holy Hill Road interchange with I-41. The plan is to redivide the property into a 37-acre parcel, specifically for the 270,000 square foot proposed facility. You will recall back in November that the village approved Green Bay Packaging's request to amend the 2050 plan, changing the classification on the property, enabling rezoning of the property to the M1 Limited Industrial District. Building improvements include 270,000 square feet of light manufacturing with 12,500 square feet of office. There are 9 dock bays on the north elevation, 17 dock bays on the south with additional room for additional docks in the future. The basic materials and architecture for the facility include painted exterior insulated precast concrete wall panels at a height of 44 and 38 feet for the warehouse building with light and dark gray painted finishes. Painted exterior insulated wall panels at a height of 15 feet with exposed steel stud framing at the office locations along the west elevation. I'm quickly scanning through some of the elevations that were provided in the packet. This shows the office elevation on the west side of the building. Some additional renderings of the site with the building located again in the northeast corner of the interchange behind the existing gasoline station. The basic site plan is shown on the screen, shows the new constructed driveway approach from Holy Hill Road on the south end of the site. It includes relocation of an existing public street. There's a close-up of that in a better close-up that shows on the lower part the existing configuration of what's called 48th Street that serves the existing gas station. On the top, the proposal is to reconstruct, relocate a portion of that public right-of-way further to the north and reconstruct the north approach to that intersection in a manner that would provide for vehicle storage in all directions for turning vehicles through the site to Holy Hill Road from the south, from the north to the south, and vehicles turning into and leaving from the gasoline station on the new relocated 48th Street. The site moving forward, this is the middle part of the site. The building with the parking for employees and customers on the west, dock areas on the south, a perimeter driveway to the east, allowing for some additional expansion of the building further to the east, and a portion of the site plan on the north side of the building. Site improvements include reconstruct the north approach at the Holy Hill Road intersection, reconstruct the public road serving the convenience store, construct a perimeter driveway serving the employee and customer parking area on the west, and truck shipping and receiving dock areas on both the north and the south. There are 2 on-site stormwater basins that are also to be included, one in the southeast corner and one in the northeast corner of the properties. Quickly, the grading plan, utilities, grading plan, and the proposed landscaping that we can discuss in detail if necessary. Staff comments. There is a wetland filling that's proposed. The wetland delineation that was done for the site identified 2 critical wetlands impacting the development. The one right in the middle is to be filled, and the larger wetland area right near the driveway approach just north of Holy Hill Road on the south end of the property. Currently, there is a request to determine whether or not the wetland on the south is artificial. That's with the DNR. Decision on that is pending. And depending upon that decision, Green Bay Packaging will move forward, excuse me, with an application to fill either under a general permit or individual permit to fill the wetland in the middle of the site and portions of the wetland to the south. The village engineer, DPW and utilities has an April 4th review, a memo with comments and technical corrections. They also have a number of issues that they feel are significant and should require a development agreement between the village and Green Bay Packaging to address issues specifically related to the reconstruction of the driveway intersection. With that, the village forester had some additional comments about additional landscaping being required in the parking areas. But all in all, the staff recommendation is to approve the site development and building plans for the 270,000 square foot facility for Green Bay Packaging, subject to 8 conditions. With that, Caitlin LaJoy is here on behalf of Green Bay Packaging. I don't know if you have a specific presentation you'd like to make or responses, or if you want to just wait to respond to questions, that's up to you.
Thank you, Director Retzloff. Committee. We have a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the site development building plan for 70,000 square foot building with the 8 conditions.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Luszewski. There is no public hearing on this. Yeah, there's no public hearing on this one. So, we have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion?
Just for information, did we talk about an easement or something for a road to go up along as a service road along the freeway?
Originally, that was the preliminary design as staff and the applicant worked through it. It was understood that the village did not need a road connecting,
Fair enough.
so they have made it a private drive now,
Okay.
and it is all theirs.
I just want to make sure it wasn't left out.
Okay. Sir, I'm gonna ask you if you are the owner of the gas station. Can I allow him to talk?
You're the chairman.
I'm gonna allow you to ask your question. So if you can come up to the podium and
I'm Paul Karras. I'm the attorney for Novi Richfield. Ram Subedi, who's also here, is the owner of that LLC. They own the gas station.
Okay.
The concerns that Mr. Subedi has, well, first of all, the confusion that we have relates to a couple of the exhibits that we've seen on pages the map that was shown on page 209 and the renderings that are on page 226 don't seem to jibe. One of them shows basically a straight line into the gas station, and the other one shows what I call an upside down V with a sharp turn off of Holy Hill Road to get into the gas station. So maybe I'm reading it wrong, but it doesn't seem to be that those two are identical.
Our director is gonna call up a plan so that we can all see what we're talking about.
Here we have direct shot.
Yeah. Artistic rendering. What they will build to is the construction documents, which are the civil plans.
Okay.
That will be
So-
the upside down V.
Yeah, so given the poetic license that was taken here, we have a concern with the sharp turns that will, the final construction result in, especially in this area right here, there could very well be a problem with the gas trucks being able to make the turn into the gas station. So we'd like the developer to address that. Maybe a wider road would be appropriate, or a different angle. The other problem is the access during construction. Mr. Sabady was the owner of the property when they did work on Holy Hill Road, and he thought that the access to get to the station was inadequate from Holy Hill Road. Made it very inconvenient for his customers to get into his place of business. So it became a gas station and inconvenience store, which isn't what he wanted. So we're hoping that we can get some sort of assurance that the access from Holy Hill Road on the temporary basis during construction will be sufficient. Now, I'll let Mr. Sabady talk if he can expand on what I've said.
Before we go to you, sir, Jeff, how does this really get addressed? It's a means and methods issue.
Yeah.
It's not a plan commission.
Well, it is. The village engineer identified in his review memo, one of the things that needs to be sorted out and specifically addressed in a development agreement is the provision of a construction sequencing plan that indicates staging to maintain uninterrupted access for the convenience store gas station. That's item number 3 under the Public Works Village Engineer comment section in the staff report on page 6 of 8. And that's folds forward into the condition number 5, requiring that all issues, both minor technical plan corrections and major access and grading issues identified in the April 4th review memo from the village engineer be resolved and reflected in additional information and a revised plan submitted to staff for further review, comment, and approval prior to commencing construction or issuance of building permits. So that would be one of the items that would need to be addressed before any building permits are issued or construction is allowed, is to sort out that construction sequencing. So there's a plan that ensures uninterrupted access to the gas station.
Okay, do you understand that, sir?
I do. I mean, our biggest concern was when the Holy Hill Road construction happened, the conversations and the minutes that I read at the village, meetings, it says uninterrupted access, but in reality, it did not happen. So what surety that we could seek, or how, what can village, put additional condition that, what do we do if there is a, interrupted access for us?
So there is going to be a legal document that the developer is gonna sign with the village.
Village, yeah.
And in that document, it will say how they are going to provide uninterrupted access for you while they're building all this stuff. And that would be worked out with you. They will come and talk to you and this is what we planned. Does this work for you or not? Is that correct?
That's good. And also, for our, I'm a pro developer, so I mean, I do support the project, and I wish them luck. They are part of the community. They employ so many people. Thank you. Biggest concern is that, our truck, gas truck, having hard time to maneuver, and that road being, right now the road is, I think, 27 or 28 feet. The existing 48th Street, and now the proposed is 24 feet wide. So we wanted that, street to be a little bit wider. So if there is a gasoline truck making a turn and somebody coming out from the station, so it doesn't
Okay.
create any inconvenience or slippery road in the winter or whatever.
Okay, the man in the back corner there in a blue shirt is our village engineer. He's aware now of your concern about that road.
Okay.
He is going to confirm that that road is adequate for truck maneuverability.
Sounds good.
Okay?
That's all.
Okay?
Thank you very much for your time.
We're good. Okay. Where did we leave off? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Did we have discussion already? Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I will say, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That's it. There's nothing else. There's no other ones on there. Okay, thank you very much. Welcome to the village again. Please work with our resident and solve the problems. All right, that takes us to item 5, citizen input and public appearance. Did somebody say wait?
I didn't.
No? Okay. Citizen input and public appearance. Anybody wishing to come forward for citizen input and public appearance, please do so. Give your form to Lori. Not clicking up on mine, but okay.
Just something quick. You got it? Okay. I will save this piece of paper. The only thing I wanted to say was I think what you were looking for, Mr. Tarantino, was a number about what we get out of the TIDs. And if I'm misinterpreting what you said, then I'm sure you'll let me know. But I did some calculations after presentation by the administrator, and apparently there's going to be something like $380 million worth of equalized assessed value. I may be using the terminology incorrectly. The portion after about 10 years, and that was the old schedule, 2029 approximately, that if they all three, 6, 7, and 8, had been retired in some given time frame, the amount that the village would have got would be 1.6 million in additional revenue
Per year.
And by my way of thinking, I think that's correct. But
There's,
presented at a meeting.
my understanding is they can't calculate it today. They can give you an estimate. 1.6 is a good enough estimate today.
That was what they provided in January and previously, before this came up.
And there's still three sites left in there to be developed?
And they had made some assessments about the potential value for those. So that's what Village was saying a few months ago. So my opinion on it is it seems like not an awful lot for the amount of effort and work and all that kind of stuff that goes into it, but that's just me. So anyway, there you go.
Okay. Anybody else wishing to come forward? No one else? Then I will move on to item number 7, which is adjournment. Any announcements? I gotta do announcements first. Any announcements? No, do we have the special meeting the 26th,
Yes.
22nd?
22nd.
22nd. Everybody's available for that? Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's the only announcement I have. Otherwise, it's a adjournment. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the 22nd. We are reviewing the housing.
It's a joint meeting with the Economic Development Commission, and we're going to be taking a more in-depth dive into the residential market analysis that was done. We got short shrifted at the original meeting because of earlier meeting taking too long and then running out of time because we had a meeting behind us and
That was for one more meeting.